Welcome back to Macademia. So, a lot of the things which I get asked in regards to macOS is it secure? As we know, computers have been targets of attackers, hackers, advanced persistent threats, whatever you want to call them, since like the early 1980s. Now, most of these targets are targeted at Windows-based systems, and it has long been the assumption that Macs are somewhat immune to these kinds of attacks. Now, that is true to a degree, but only because the number of Macs in the world is significantly fewer than the number of Windows systems, and so more of the attacks which we see are based on Windows systems, but that does not mean that Apple systems are completely left alone. In fact, there's been an uptick in the last couple of years of attacks or attempted attacks on macOS. So, with that in mind, I'm going to start and go through a couple of episodes, well, probably more than a couple, about how you can best protect your Mac. So the first thing I want to do is start by talking about the Windows firewall. Now, the firewall we can get to by going into the system settings, and in the system settings, you can go into network, and you can go to firewall. Now you can see that my firewall here is inactive, and there's a good reason for that, and I'll explain here in just a moment. Now, if I turn the firewall on, what a firewall is meant to do, or it's designed to do, is to block a lot of the incoming connections and sometimes the outgoing connections to your computer. Right? So in this case, we're only going to allow, in fact, if we go into the options, you can see we're allowing some connections. So remote login, I'm actually allowing through the firewall. We're allowing built-in software on macOS to connect to the internet. We're also allowing what's called signed software to receive incoming connections. Now, signed software is stuff which might not necessarily be in the Apple Mac Store, like the App Store down here. But what we might see is people downloading applications from the internet, and if they are developed by somebody who's part of the Apple developer program, then their applications should be signed as well. So that's what that is. We can also enable stealth mode if we want, which means that people wouldn't be able to even see a lot of the interactions that the computer is having over the network, or we can do block all connections completely, right? Which is okay, right? And the firewall on macOS is reasonable, right? If you turn it on, it's definitely going to offer you some protection, but is it going to be the best protection that's afforded to you? And the answer really to that is no. Now, some people will prefer to spend a good chunk of money on third-party firewall software for the Mac. I am a real believer that that's not necessary. And the reason for that is because there is a great website, and a lot of the stuff which I'm going to talk about over the next few episodes is going to come from this website called objectivec.org. And this website is designed and created by people who are interested in Apple, especially Mac-based security. Now, one of the things which they do is that they offer a bunch of free tools. One of them is called Lulu, right? Now, Lulu is, as it says here, free open source firewall for Macs. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at that, right? I have Lulu installed, and I can open it by going into the applications and open it from my Spotlight search. And here you can see we're going to allow Apple signed binaries, right? So anything which has been signed with a developer account, anything which was installed prior to me installing Lulu is also going to be allowed. Now, I might not like that, and so I might want to uncheck it. There's a few other items in there. You can also add a block list. The different modes here. You can run passive, which means it will just automatically accept all new connections that you make from your computer, which probably is not a great idea. You can also block all traffic, okay, which again would be pretty useful in some situations, but bearing in mind that's going to cut off your internet essentially to your Mac. Or you can do this: run it, but don't show an icon in the menu bar up here. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You can also establish specific rules, right? Here's all the rules which have been created through my normal interaction with the computer. Okay, as we scroll down, you can see all these different applications I have given permission for the computer to interact with all of these and allow them in some degree to have access to the internet. Now I can look at the default installed applications. I can look at things which have been signed by Apple and third-party applications, and then user-based applications. And down at the end we have unclassified. Okay, so we have all these which we can check. I'm going to go ahead and close that window and that window. Now, how does Lulu work? Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to open my Arc web browser right here. And do you notice that, right? As soon as it opens up now, right, this is now considered to be a new application on my computer. And it says, well, hey, look, this web browser is trying to access the internet, or trying to access the network, using this set of command line arguments. This is the application location, this is the port that it's trying to use, and this is where it's trying to communicate with. So a couple of nice things I can do here is that I can go up to here to Ancestry and see where the application has been launched from, okay, which is fine. Come out of that. Oh, click on Ancestry again. I can also try to look up this application on something called VirusTotal, which is a website which basically is composed of a whole bunch of different people's input in terms of virus detection and stuff like that. So if you want to know if a file is malicious, you can go to VirusTotal, and it will then tell you, how many of their virus definitions actually classify this as a virus. And here you can see 0 out of 77 of these think it's malicious in any way. You can click on details, which will then open a web page and take you to that location, okay, and say, look, no, this is perfectly fine, you don't need to worry about that. Well, kind of. So once I've done all that, I'm going to go ahead and hit allow. Then you'll notice we've got another one underneath where it's the same kind of thing, except instead of Arc Helper, this time it's just straight up Arc. And this time, yes, again, we're going to allow that connection. Once we've allowed that connection, we can then go to any website we want and it will load it up. If we had not approved that connection, none of this would have loaded. Okay, so that's firewalls for you. Again, just to reiterate, built-in firewall in macOS is probably okay. For most needs. Lulu is extraordinarily powerful, and it's free and it's open source. So if you really wanted to, you could go back and check to see if the source code itself to make sure there was nothing going on in the software which is malicious in any way. All right. So yeah, that's it for this episode. Please come back again. We'll talk more about some of the security aspects of macOS at another time. Thanks for watching.